Hi, this is Jim from Vaudevisuals. I'm here with Serene at Leroy's place in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And it's a most exotically wonderful artistic venue for purchasing and perusing. It's like an old-fashioned general store, but only artistic novelties and great things. Let's hear about like where your idea came to open this place.
Thank you so much. I never set out 20 years ago when this journey began to like open a monster store. That wasn't like the, spark. And so it's really grown organically over time. Initially it was just me with a table. I did craft fairs and art markets for years. And I started this collection of monster paintings where I took old vintage paintings of these kind of like boring landscapes and painted these monsters into them. And, over time, I started those in 2009, and over time they became more and more narrative, and the collection of monsters that would kind of like appear in these landscapes kind of became more like robust, and I became interested in telling the stories of those characters. So I tried to do animation, and it was so tedious. The process wasn't for me. So I found my way to puppetry, and then I personally, translating a two-dimensional character into a three-dimensional character is a really challenging process, and I had a really hard time translating my own characters. And very serendipitously around this time, I was at a craft fair and art market in New Orleans. This guy comes up to my booth and he's looking through my art and he says, "Hey, have you ever thought about making these as puppets?" And that is my wonderful collaborator, and now longtime collaborator and dear friend Jacques Dufour. And so he started to help make this world three-dimensional. So together we did some short films and started to build these sort of more experiential and large-scale installation pieces. And it's a bit addictive, once you start seeing these huge creatures come to life in person and see them moving around, it's like you want to see more and more of them. So after some large projects, we accumulated this incredible collection of large-scale puppets and kind of a design aesthetic, and we said, you know what, I think this is a place. And so that was kind of the impetus to open a store.
and the name Leroy, where's Leroy? Who's Leroy?
So Leroy, I know, he's sort of the fictional mastermind. Again, when this company started, I never knew what it was going to become. And Leroy was one of my characters at the very beginning. I'd always thought of it as kind of like his menagerie. But then people started calling me Leroy. It became my nickname, and now I've actually since named my son Leroy after Leroy's place. So now he's the real Leroy.
How old is your son now?
He's 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. The real Leroy.
The real Leroy, indeed. Yeah, whether he likes it or not.
Whether he likes it or not. That's good. So the store contains a lot of different artistic pieces. Can you tell us about the different kinds of vocabulary of artistic things that are here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really proud of my artist relationships, and they mean a lot to me. As I mentioned, I started this company doing craft fairs and art markets and traveling all over the country. And many of these artists I know from that time, so I'm able, and also many of them are collaborators in these larger, more robust narrative projects. So it's kind of like a little ecosystem. We're able to buy from our friends and support their work, and I feel really good selling things that you can't find anywhere else in the kind of known universe. And I think people, when they come into the store, are so delighted and refreshed, because everything feels it's like more of the same all the time. And so I think coming into this space where you're like, God, I've never seen any of these things, it is kind of this wonderful experience. So yes, and I'm grateful to all these artists for working with me in this weird experiment.
Well, it's great to find a store that's unique these days. I mean, it really is a unique store in that respect, because everything is so rubber stamped these days. I mean, the chains of stores and et cetera, et cetera. But so to find a little novelty store like yours with all these wonderful artistic endeavors. It's been a nice change of pace.
Thank you. Well, you know, I think there's a lot of things happening in art now for these like experiential design spaces, and like the idea of what a retail space is, or even what a space is, has to evolve and change. I think spaces have to do more things and be more things for people. So, you know, it's besides being a store, it's a showcase, it's a portfolio, it's a living portfolio of our work. It's also a studio and an office for us. We also have community events for connecting and meeting other artists and hopefully other collaborators, and you know, all of those things I think are really hard to get in a virtual space. So I really believe in physical spaces, and that was really important to me, that this is something you could like literally walk into.
And you do performances here? And
yeah, so most of our, we actually just did our first full-length live puppetry show, hour-long puppetry piece. It was performed in New Orleans. A lot of our development happens in Louisiana. Our puppet studio is there, along with our other sister gallery, which my brother runs. And so we hope to be able to bring that live theater piece up to New York. But of course, like, you know, these big projects get developed in stages, and so it's going to take some, you know, grant writing and things on our part. But we hope to do more live work up here for sure.
Nice. So you have community events here in the backyard and things like that.
Yeah.
In the store. And
exactly. And you know, it's interesting. You know, kids are welcome, and people want to see this because it's a colorful, unique space. I think people come in and they want to see it as a kid space. And actually, we kind of call ourselves a toy store for grown-ups, because it's got like, oh, well, we're the ones who need the levity, first of all. But you know, it's got all this like wonderful nostalgia, and it's like all of our references, or at least from my childhood, it's like, you know, if you take Pee-wee and Jim Henson and Tim Burton and all kind of like smush them into this like one kind of fever dream. So I think while we love to have kids are welcome in the space, I think it's really for adults to kind of like say, oh wow, like this is for me. That's kind of this like magical thing that happens here.
That's kind of like what took me by surprise, which I live in the neighborhood and have walked by the store on numerous occasions over the years. And then when Brendan pointed it out to me, he said, well, you know, it's actually run by a puppeteer. I said, oh, I got to go in there.
What? I know. Well, you know, I think it takes a while. You know, luckily there are these like larger collectives and art companies that are giving people a frame of reference for these creative spaces. Like Meow Wolf obviously was really groundbreaking in how, you know, they help to give, you know, enlighten the public of how to interact with this unusual space. But there's still a big learning curve, because nobody's ever walked into a monster store before, or a store with, you know, these like giant, and that's unique to have never, and you're not expecting it when you're like walking down this, like, you know, we're tucked away in this neighborhood in Park Slope, and it's like, well, I was just getting my sourdough at the corner. It's like I wasn't expecting to be in this like alternate universe.
But it's such a nice surprise.
Right. I think the uncanniness of that and the sort of unexpectedness kind of adds to it.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Serene, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'm so happy you're here in this neighborhood. And
oh, thank you. Well, thank you for letting us share our story, and you can see all of our short films in puppetry and more about us on our website at leroysplace.com.
Terrific. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Super.